agenda are present and can hear me. I am Bob Springett, BOS Chair. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. John Jeffries.
Present.
Robin Hunter.
Present, and I can hear you.
I'm happy. Mike.
Present.
Is anybody? Chris?
Present as well.
Okay. So it's Chris Costello and Mike Blanchard who answered in the affirmative. So are there any citizen comments? Hearing none, we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is welcoming our Assistant Town Administrator, Chris Costello. And I will be very happy to lead and say, as part of our but as part of our onboarding initiative, I was able to meet with Chris and with Robin and with Kyle and with Mike today over coffee in the Selectmen's office. And they're going to be the components of our experiment with onboarding. And we had a delightful time. And Mike bought me coffee, so it even made it better. And, I got to meet Chris a few minutes before John got to meet Chris, although I was in the interview process. So Chris, it was delightful having coffee with you. It was great sharing ideas and experiences, and welcome aboard. So I don't know.
Thank you so much.
You want to add, or Chris, you want to say?
Yeah, no, I thank you for the welcome. I'm truly excited to be here. For those who don't know, I have a background in strategic communications. I also have a master's degree in public administration from Suffolk University. Like I said before, I'm just excited to be here. I just finished up my second week already, and I've just been really pleased with the warm welcome that I've had from everybody that I've had the chance to interact with. I think there's a lot of potential in this community to increase our communication efforts with the residents, and I'm excited to be part of the team to see that through. So I guess the first 2 weeks I've spent a good deal of time just kind of understanding, what are our current communication practices, and just taking an inventory of our policies, our procedures, our tools, and also our assets to develop a plan going forward. So with that, I thank you for the welcome, and I'm really excited to be here and do good things for the town.
Bob, if you don't mind, I just want to add how excited we all are for Chris to be here. He's been very well received, and he's really hit the ground running. He's already, as he mentioned, reviewing policies and what we have in place, but he's already met with Ruth Townsend as that transition takes place from the newsletter. He's met with our website provider to start to talk about a redesign. He's scheduled a meeting, I think, for early next week with our communications consultant. So he's been really very busy and very well received by everyone that has met him so far. So we're really excited for Chris to join the team.
John, anything you want to ask? Be careful here.
Chris, I'll be on my best behavior. I promise you. It's literally nice to meet you for the very first time, and welcome aboard. There's going to be a lot to do, and we're really excited to have you.
Thank you, John.
Robin?
Hello again, Chris. Really glad to have you on board, and enjoyed our first interaction yesterday at the Housing Partnership Task Force. So I'm really looking forward to working with you.
Yeah. Welcome aboard. Yeah, you don't have to stay for the whole meeting. You can just split.
Bob, before you
have to leave.
But you're more than welcome to stay, Chris. It's a learning experience.
It's
And then you can
painful.
rank
It
us
won't
and you
be
can
anywhere
tell us,
near as fun as we had.
And you can tell us how effective our communication is. Maybe,
Oh, yeah, you
maybe
could do a critique.
you can help us out there too.
I'd be delighted to stay. I'm very eager to learn about the activities of the Selectmen. So I'll be
Well,
here.
you say that now.
Yeah, exactly. Bob, before you
All
move
righty.
on, there is one item that we should have covered in the citizen speak, and that I was remiss in reminding everyone. The most important thing happening tonight for Dover is not taking place in Dover. It's taking place in Swampscott. The boys varsity soccer team is playing Swampscott in the sectional finals this evening. So we've got to wish them luck. Girls tomorrow.
All right.
Now you can move on.
You have any other PSAs?
Now, we just got to wish everybody good luck in the tournaments that they're respectively playing in. Just happens to be there's one tonight.
Okay, so Chris, take a note. No more PSAs.
Chris, you better know
Okay,
everybody you better know every player by their first name by next week. Or you're gonna have angry parents.
Let's get the board. Let the chair get the board. Let the chair get the sofa under control here. So Dover, item 1.2, Dover Arbor Day proclamation and Tree City USA designation discussion. We have a presenter who we love very dearly, Valerie Lynn. The floor is yours, madam.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good evening, and welcome, Chris. We're all very glad that you're here. That's great. I am here tonight to talk about an Arbor Day, a Dover Arbor Day proclamation. And before I do that, I'm just going to step back a little bit and give a little history. I'm working with the Tree Preservation Committee. We are submitting a Tree City USA application so that our community can be designated as a Tree City USA community. And the history of this goes back to 1872 when there was a gentleman in Nebraska who identified the need for trees in the very barren lands of Nebraska, and so started planting trees and setting aside a day to really promote and invest in their communities. And this has taken hold across the nation over the years and is now a national observance. Usually it's the last Friday of April. And so the Tree City USA application, which is through the Arbor Foundation. However, it is administered through the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation. They are administering this program, and there are 4 elements or standards that they ask communities to comply with to be eligible for this designation. And Dover complies very easily over the past few years, has actually complied with 3 of the elements. And the 4th element, which is the proclamation, is the one piece that is missing. And the benefit of becoming a Tree City USA community is that the Massachusetts DCR has actually stated that in addition to having this investment in your community and being recognized for the significant investment, it also gives preference for grant applications that are from Tree City USA communities that are DCR grants. And so we anticipate that Dover will be applying for some of those grants in the future. So that would be a benefit in addition to just of course, the investing in our community. So what I'm asking for tonight are actually 2 proclamations because the Tree City USA application goes on a calendar year. So DCR said that your community can decide any time within that year you want to identify the day that you will provide the observance. So for 2023, we are asking that our observance day will be Tuesday, November 14th, which is this coming Tuesday. And we've organized a very small, simple observance with a new red oak tree that has been planted on the town green near kind of over near the Legion. And it's replacing a tree that had been there probably well over 200 years that had to be removed a couple years ago. So there will be a small group of people who will gather, those who were involved with the planting of the tree, but we open it to the community. And I will also reach out to Felicia to put something on the calendar for the community.
So Val, what time tomorrow is that ceremony?
It's on Tuesday.
Next week.
Tuesday, sorry, okay,
Tuesday at noon.
okay.
So that's the first thing I'm asking for is for the 2023 proclamation. The second thing I'm asking for is the 2024 proclamation. And the date that we are suggesting is Friday, April 26th, which is the National Day of Observance for Arbor Day. And the Tree Preservation Committee will work with different groups in the Dover community to set up some activities that people of all ages can participate in. So we will reach out to the library, Park and Rec, and the COA and other groups to see what activities they would be interested in together with us on.
Okay. John,
100% in favor. Would you like to read the motion?
I'll read the motion. It's okay.
Can I ask Val a question?
Sure, Robin.
So is the idea that each year we will plant a tree somewhere as a symbol as part of the ceremony? Okay, that's great.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That was my only question. I love this idea. So is it the plaque that I see in other towns with the tree?
Yes.
I never knew what it
Yes.
was for. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so good. So I move to approve the Town of Dover 2023 Arbor Day proclamation and Town of Dover 2024 Arbor Day proclamation. There'll be a ceremony on 11/14/2023 for the 23 proclamation. 4/26/24 for the 24 proclamation.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, I, Bob Springer.
Aye, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Nicely done, Val. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too.
You too.
Bye, Val. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ba-da-bum. So we're moving on to item warrant article guidelines, introduction and discussion.
And you're up, Bob.
Is it me?
Yeah.
I'm just going through the flotsam and jetsam. So as you guys know, as part of the board, there's been a small group of people, about 4 people, it varies a little bit, who have been working on streamlining town meeting and looking for ways to help us get through town meeting in an effective and efficient way. There's been a lot of work done over time. One of the last remaining items that people were very interested in doing was putting together a set of guidelines for people who wanted to propose warrant articles. It was sort of a little bit of a squirrely process. People really didn't seem to know what was going on. And so that group, I think it was really led by Dave. Dave Havlin took the initiative, but everybody participated. And I'm assuming everybody had time to review what we wanted to make to be sort of a welcoming guideline. We wanted it to be reasonably easy to read, which I think we accomplished most of those things. But more importantly, we wanted to make sure people understood their roles and what their responsibilities were when they were proposing warrant articles. And we asked them all to be pretty thoughtful about the impact those things have on the people in the townhouse, because it has to be done together. So I guess, I don't know if we need a vote. I don't know if we just need to say, okay. I think when we asked Mike, I think we don't need a vote, but I certainly would like to make sure that my colleagues here have agree with moving forward with this. They want to implement it this go round.
Comments from me? I absolutely would like to implement it this go round. I think it's critically important that everybody, there's going to be petitions, lots of planning petitions. There's going to be warrant articles. I'm hearing there's going to be warrant articles for a lot of items that are non-traditional items. So I think it's going to be everyone's best interest. And I really want to thank everyone who's taken part of this, because over the past couple of years, we've had a lot to deal with, from the COVID years to the post-COVID years, to really getting people to get back to town meeting and understanding how the town runs, and the critical importance of presenting a warrant properly. So thank you to everyone who's taken part in this, Bob. That's it for me.
Thank you, John. Robin?
Oh, I think it's great. And it's, I think boards and committees have a good idea of how to get a warrant, but it's the citizens. And I think this will be really helpful. Dave and the committee did a really nice job. It's easy to read. It's also good for new warrant committee members, since they play quite a big role in this. So I think it's great. And I definitely concur that we should implement it now, or at least make it available.
Yeah, no, it's meant to be, available for people coming in and do this stuff.
Right.
Felicia played I mean, you know who generally carries the ball on these kinds of things.
Right. And I thought the timeline at the end was really good, just so that, if you're a sponsor, you can keep in mind, because I mean, we've had warrant articles where the day before town meeting, the citizen petitioners didn't realize they needed to put together a presentation. So
yeah, I think that was part of the wood for the fire that
right.
was burning in this area.
Right.
All right, so I'm just going to say,
right. I mean, there would be one item that you can or cannot add. It's up to you guys, but I think it's important somewhere to note that you only get 8 minutes or 5 minutes. So you have to make sure your presentation is short and you practice.
Yeah, I think
I don't remember that.
I think that there's a separate thing that Jim has that makes up a little packet that talks about a little bit more of the rules of the road.
Okay,
and
perfect.
it's in there.
And there is a sentence that talks about that you typically give it 8 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Just to set expectations.
Okay.
And
I missed that.
That's all right.
You see how closely I read it.
I wrote that. Jim told me he and Dave wrote that after reading Moby Dick. So we needed to get a little shorter than Moby
No,
Dick.
I thought it's excellent. So
Yeah, it was and it's English was the hard thing, right?
it's always hard to put these things in writing, and it's very good.
Yes,
Job.
it is. Okay, so So just an affirmative. Do I need anything, Mike?
Yeah, I don't think you just have to approve it. I think we recommended just kind of as the executive body to accept the warrant guidelines as presented, just to make it kind of a formal, put it in place as of today.
So moved. Do I have a second?
second,
All in favor? Aye, Bob Sprant.
aye, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Great.
Michael, underline the part where identify the money. Make that bold.
We'll highlight it. Yep.
John, that and the 8 minutes are the two most important things.
And what's the rebuttal? The rebuttal's 2?
I believe it's 2 for questions and follow up. Yep.
Okay. So item 1.4, approval of annual renewal of package, store, and club liquor license. Mr. Blanchard.
Yeah, so as the board will recall, each November every year, the state requires that any liquor licenses a community have need to be renewed. So in your packet are renewal applications signed by Dover Wine Company and the American Legion. They've submitted the necessary forms, insurances, inspection requirements, and we'd recommend you move to approve renewal. This is just to note 2 things, just for the record. One is the Dover Wine Company, it's as it exists currently. They separately may be pursuing an alteration of premises to kind of expand in that now they have both sides of the market and the package store, but that'll be addressed separately. This is just for the existing renewal. And the same thing with the American Legion. As you may know, there's been some discussion about expanding their operation. This renewal is simply for the existing Legion operation, nothing new. So I just wanted to note that.
Okay. John, any questions?
100% in favor of both.
Robin, any follow-up questions or query?
I just have one question. So the market came to us, with extended hours on certain days. And I think we put together a side letter. So
Yeah,
that would just, again, be effective with the new license.
Right. That's a
Yeah,
separate.
that carries with the renewal.
Okay.
Carries with
Okay.
Okay. I move to approve the renewal of the annual retail packaged goods store license for Dover Wine Company for 2024. I move to approve the renewal of the club license for the George B. Preston American Legion Post for 2024.
Second.
All in favor? I, Bob Springett.
Aye, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Done. Item 1.5, Town Report Memorandum, Discussion and Vote. So I got a email. I'm assuming that this is the annual.
Yep.
So I got an email today from later in the day from Kathy Weld, who told me that there wouldn't be any members from committee coming today. So I'm not sure if we go forward with this or if we defer it.
So Bob, I'd recommend you move forward. This is, kind of a standard ask each year.
So this is the instructions on how to.
Yeah, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The letter does come from you as chair, so we do ask the board to approve the guidelines, but it is pretty standard, so I think it'd be appropriate to move forward.
And it's identical to prior years, it's in the format. They give you the format.
Yeah, I think the format was the issue for the longest time, wasn't it?
Right. And I think these and it's people getting it to the committee on a timely basis.
Yeah.
It's mostly the photos, getting the photos in. That's where they spend most of their time.
So is that something that we should feedback and they should put a little bit more emphasis on that?
No. That's just people getting Kathy photos that will be representative of the annual report, which are usually spectacular.
Yeah. Okay. I move to approve the annual town report guidelines dated November 9th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor? I, Bob Springett.
Aye, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Thank you again. Item 1.6, Board of Selectmen. Okay, this is on us, huh? John, you're up.
Okay, so I've lots to report. Item number 1, Chief of Police search. So, quick recap: 30 candidates 4 months ago. 30 candidates applied. We have been working. Bob, I looked at the roles and responsibilities of the last item, and where you put in the number of hours of work that the selectmen put in.
You gotta up those, maybe.
Yeah, you gotta expand that number by tenfold. So last week we met for 8.5 hours all day on Friday, and to go through the assessment center. The assessment center was the most thorough, most comprehensive search mechanism I've ever seen in any job interview that I've been a part of, that I've conducted as a senior manager, and for any of the people that I've hired. I have never seen anything like it. It was so well done. It was so well thought through. There were 5 members of the committee who did the presentations. The consultants that we hired spent hours on the questions, the role playing, the assessments. The 3 finalists just really had their hands full, and they did extraordinarily well. So that lasted all day last week. We took all of the information given to us by our consultants. where they stood, where the applicants stood, how they graded, where they were positive, where there was room for improvement, and we measured the three candidates. Typically, at the end of the assessment center, you move the field down to two candidates. And what we, as the committee, decided on for the next round, which takes place tomorrow for it at the townhouse, we'll meet for about 4 hours tomorrow. We are going to bring all three candidates back. And the reason that we've decided to do that for face-to-face meetings is because they are so remarkably close. Our consultants feel, and they would have told us if they felt that there was one applicant that should have been dropped from the remaining field, that it would have been their recommendation to do that. We debated for a very long time last week as a committee with all the representations that we received from our consultants, and the committee decided to bring all three of the candidates back for one-on-one interviews with the committee. That will take place tomorrow, and we are really, really, really fortunate to have three exceptional candidates.
Well, good luck, John. Pick a winner, man.
Yeah. So we will have, at the end of the day tomorrow, we will have a recommendation for the board for our next meeting. So we're excited about this. Then the hard part will really begin for the three of us. So that's number one. Number two, open space. Open space met last night. We had a very thorough meeting regarding hail. And hail, as everyone knows, is on our agenda. We had a very lively, very frank, very open discussion, which you always get with the members of Open Space. And I will look forward to discussing that with you all in executive session regarding our meetings for our upcoming section of the meeting of tonight's meeting for hail. And then we also want to report to you regarding the financial review process that I have met with two additional citizens that expressed interest in this endeavor that we're undertaking. Scott Herrick and John Stelberger. They both reached out to Mona. They both, I followed up with communications that they've made to us and had interviews with both of them. Very well qualified individuals with expressing interest in this process, which, again, because of the nature of what we are doing, I will submit recommendations to Michael, and then Michael can discuss with the board. And it seems to me that's the most logical way. That we have to determine we'll have to drill down, determine what the scope of this should be, and decide if the scope should be expanded, limited. But I do feel we have people who've expressed an interest, and that will be a very productive thing going forward.
Thank you, Robin.
I think we need to outline or delineate the scope of the project.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought you'd go to the housing task force.
Oh, all right.
But I think we're putting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
On the investment advisory thing. So go ahead. Sorry.
All right. So the housing task force, we met yesterday. It was our second meeting. It was a really productive meeting. We went over the housing education plan, which was presented by Jasmine and Jody Shu. The next steps is they're going to put together a comprehensive project plan and timeline, which we will review. We also had a really good discussion about setting up a web page called Land Development Housing Projects. We have ideas for a future web page, but we felt it was really important to put something up there ASAP. So Chris is going to work with Jasmine and Jody to set that up now with the current information that we already have on the website, which is just really hard to get to, and to make sure that we have current information on the 2 active developments that or 3 that we have, which is Tisdale 2, aka Red Robin 2, the 17 acres on Junction Street, and then the Trout Brook 40B. So, and then we'll be working on refining this page as we update the website, but we thought it was important to get that on there. We also we also had some ideas about setting up a town development review team. We also wanted to see if maybe the housing task force would be a good replica for this town development review team. Janet Bowser, and I can share it with the board, put together a really comprehensive memo of the roles and responsibilities of the town development review team that she sat on in Wellesley. And it was something that she thought we could mirror. It's a way where Dover could have some friendly developers when new parcels of land come up. We decided this was something we really wanted to do, but prior to doing this, we really needed to do phase 2 of the Housing Task Force projects, which are to understand what Dover wants when it comes to multifamily developments. What would be acceptable to the town? So that's on the back burner for a while. The other thing we did is we had put together a comprehensive checklist that could be used by the staff with each of the various types of developments that we have today. That was reviewed. There are some tweaks that need to be made to that. And there was a suggestion to add some granularity in some of the line items. So Mike is going to coordinate with the town staff to get those updated. And then those checklists are good to start using. So again, once we have a final copy, we will share it with the board. We also then talked about the goals of the Housing Development Task Force. And one of the things was really to put together a comprehensive plan for the development plan for the town of Dover, like different types of developments that we might want to consider as part of our housing plan. And in order to do that, we really need outside expertise. So the idea was to do something very similar to what we did with water and have a special warrant article at town meeting asking for a sum of money that could help us pull together this more comprehensive plan for different types of developments. So that's
what we mirror what other towns are doing, Robin.
I beg your pardon?
How does it mirror? I mean, if we looked at other towns, you see, I think
I mean, that's our roadmap, because why recreate the wheel? Sherborne, Sherborne with their latest 40B will be at 10%. And they, again, actively have worked with developers on the types of development that would work for the town of Sherborne.
So, I mean, it sounds like it could consume a huge amount of time and take, I mean, it just seems like it's a pile of work. Do you have any idea how much?
I don't, and we've already, we've already made a huge amount of progress. We have a checklist that there's some granularity that needs to be added to that. We also, we're using town staff, volunteers, and consultants. But we just, we need to make sure that funding's there for the consultants. And the planning board has already spent an enormous amount of time, because whatever types of development is acceptable to the town, we then need to have a roadmap to change our zoning bylaws. So, this is an investment in the future of Dover, because development is going to happen whether we want it or not. So the idea of this committee is be proactive, not reactive.
Well, yeah, it really is. But by the same token, it's an investment in time on our part too, right? And I do think it's part of the bigger picture. And it's really hard to get a sense of the enormity of the task. I can understand it being pretty complex. It's also pretty hard to get a sense of likely ability to move the state on a lot of this stuff. So as we go down the path, you could just spend your next 2 lives doing this, right?
Well, that is why it's so important. Development is going to happen.
So you said.
No matter what, it's going to happen. So as a citizen of Dover, I would like it to happen in a way that's going to maintain the rural character of the town.
I think we all share that, Robin. I just don't get this. I have no idea how much time, effort, or work you're talking about.
I don't know, Bob. It's an investment in the town, and I think it's part of the goals, I believe. So, we need to put together a more comprehensive plan, and this is what this committee is going to do. So far we have had 2-hour-long meetings that have been extremely productive, and the work's been divided amongst the town staff and volunteers on the committee. So it's worked out really well. People are very, very engaged.
Yeah, I mean, we had the same questions with Carol, right? And we were able to we got to the same place, sort of the same place, making sure that we had the right people connected up, had the meetings, we understood the questions and we understood the goals. And it just this is a big deal, as you pointed out. So
and it's an important investment, in my opinion, for the town.
I agree. And now I'm going to kick back to anything else. John, any questions?
No questions. I agree with both of you. Critically important. We're always going to be, regardless of how well prepared we think we are, we're always going to be reacting to something that we didn't foresee, because there's going to be a developer that decides that there's something that they can do here that we didn't foresee. So the attempt to be as prepared as we possibly can. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And I do understand, Bob, that what you're saying, we have to be mindful of our resources. We have limited time. We have limited resources. We can't boil the ocean, right?
Yeah.
We also can't afford to bury our heads in the sand. So
agree.
We'll
anybody doing that?
Right.
No.
Okay, so I want to come back then. If the issue is, if we take too much on, stuff doesn't get done, right? So you really got to be mindful of, we have limited resources. When you take on a huge project, you got to make sure you have the resources to actually move it along, not just sort of nudge it forward. And you're giving up other goals or objectives by allocating resources to a bigger project. So it's just making sure that there's, we agree on terms of scope, we agree on terms of importance, and we agree in terms of balance. And because it's a big deal, and it's a big deal for people in the town. I mean, we've been living a certain way for 400 years. So nobody is minimizing this particular issue. We're just late to the gate.
Well, I think you have to understand that this is an initiative that's already happening. The planning board is already working on this, and they received numerous grants this year to move forward. We just want to make sure that we continue to have the funding that we need to put something in place.
Yeah.
You know, and again, this was a first conversation, and we need to put together a plan of what we think this project is going to entail. But as I said in our first meeting, when I set this up, the primary goal here was to put together a checklist, because that was imperative. And we have that.
So this 40Bs are not new, right? What's new is
It's
this.
not just 40Bs, Bob.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different types.
Please, hang on. 40Bs are not new. We've been dealing with 40Bs for a while. The new thing is this multi-dwelling issue pushed by the state and the MBTA. Is the focus both, or is the focus one or the other, or we're going to try to wrap it all up?
We're trying to include everything.
And so we've been
you know, the
inundated with
MBTA, right? So the project is, we're saying it is all types of multifamily development. You know, we right now have a consultant that was assigned to us by the state that's doing work on the MBTA Communities Act.
Right.
And he's working directly with our town planner. And, you know, at some point she will have a final report from him that has been vetted. But she's working extremely closely with.
Is there a deadline for that one? Is that the end of the year, or is it next? I mean, there's a timeline.
The deadline for that is December 2025.
Yeah, next year. Okay. All right. I do want to come back now. Is there any other follow-up for Robin?
No.
Thank you, Robin. I think we're off base on this investment advisory thing. And I want to come back because I'm not sure what it is we're trying to do. So when we're talking about, it seemed to me that at first blush, when we went out and said we're going to put together an investment advisory working group, it seemed like we got people who thought they were going to invest town money, and it was very confusing. This is a process review, in my view. We've issued debt twice in the last 2 or 3 years with no hiccups. The entire state has moved through the issue of the debt crisis a few months back without any issues. I don't know there is investment risk here. I think the problem here is we were surprised by the lack of communication, about who we sign up with, what the fees are, how often it happens, are people doing what they said they should do. It always struck me as a much more process-oriented piece. And when thinking about this as a process-oriented piece, it's not clear to me why we need to set up a working group other than have you, John, maybe Dave Havlin, who is now retired and has the time to do some work, working with Kyle, who's our treasurer, and one of the 2 TAs that we have to deal with an internal, which may or may not turn out to be an internal issue. And if it turns out not to be an internal issue and we have to take a second step, then maybe we do that. But I would really like to understand where we are right now. And I would really like to use the people that we have on board who have the experience to at least do that piece. No? Am I just totally out of my on this one?
Nope, absolutely right. And so this is going to be part of my recommendation to Michael, and I'll tell you how I got there. So I'll give you just a summary of what I was in the process, have been in the process of putting in writing. In speaking with the members of the community that responded to our we basically had an open conversation, right? And we said we should do this and we should take a look at it. What I've really come to understand is, if you look at the 19 questions that I gave Michael to ask Hilltop Securities and ask Bartholomew, all of the questions were extremely technical. And in full disclosure, both David Havlin and I have 40 years of investment management experience. We've passed Series 6, Series 7, 63, 24, Series 9. Each one of these things that I just rattled off is a 7-hour exam. Each individual series is a 7-hour exam. So it's like taking the bar 7 separate times to do these, right? So it is extremely detailed. The bond section of the Series 7 exam is 3 hours just by itself. You have an entire section just devoted to bonds, so municipal financing, right? It's such a critical part of our economy. So what I came to realize is the people who showed a lot of interest in this are not Series 6 or Series 7 or Series 9 or 63 or 65 licensed. So when you're having a really in-depth conversation with the people who, by the way, Bob, did expose us to risk. There is risk inherent in everything that we're in. What our oh my God moment was back in March was realizing nobody was paying attention to this risk that is inherent in everything that we do. We literally had no one paying attention to it. So that was the oh my God moment for all of us, right? So what you said just now is 100% correct. We need a very limited scope of exact questions to ask the providers. It does not have to be wide ranging. It is micro fine surgery. That's the beginning of my report back to Michael.
All right, so Robin, I'm going to ask John to work with either with Mike and Carl and with Dave, if you agree, and to put together a scope document on this, so we can basically make sure all the boxes are checked and we can move forward, if that's okay.
Yeah, I just think it's important when you talk about risk that citizens understand that everything we do is prescribed by Mass General Law, and
Right.
there's very little wiggle room when it comes to that.
Yeah, no, but I think that's an important point, and it sort of should shape the scope. Nobody suffered any losses during that whole Silicon Valley Bank thing. And I want to make sure that because I also believe the state has a vested interest in making sure municipalities are pretty darn tight with how and why they spend their money, and they check it on carefully. So similar to scope with what you were talking about with the housing task force, I want to make sure that the arrows we're shooting at this are the right size, for the right duration, and we are a little bit stingy with resources, but we need to make sure that John's point about risk is covered. Is that good?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I agree with Robin. However, I will take it just one step a little bit deeper and say, based upon what we as a town were thinking our needs, what we're doing, they are not consistent with where we are and where money has been deployed that is under our discretion. So that alignment has to be done. That has to be maintained. As I said, it was never done, and so there are questions to be answered. We have to determine if the people who are doing this are people who have our best interest, are looking after our best interest, and should we continue the relationships with them? So, yes, those are easy questions, but they're very specific. So.
Yeah, and so for the audience, why Dave Haviland? Dave Haviland is our assistant town moderator, and I just come to understand that he knows his end of the business, like John had said, and he has the time to do it, which I think are really good qualifications for somebody to do this kind of work for us.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
We're going to move on then.
Thank you.
You okay? Is that all set? You're set in your mind? That's fine.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I need Mike.
Oh, yes.
We might want to loosen that tie, it's it might be a little tight. Okay, so Robin and I started out on a quest on the role and responsibility guidelines for the Board of Selectmen. We got the actual first draft done, which really hasn't changed tremendously in about 3 or 4 days. And then it were like 705 versions. So I sent what I considered to be the final draft because the first draft went out that we got suggestions that were incorporated. I said a second draft we got less. So I'm assuming that from the boards and committees, the second draft is acceptable to most of the town, since we sent it to most of the town. Then I asked Mike to also send it to our communications consultant to make sure it was in English. And I asked Mike to send it to Nina, so that I was confident that we were not violating in any way, shape, or form underlying bylaws or regulations that I simply would be unaware of. And so I'm in a position where if we get a green light from those other two people, I'm ready to go with this. I think it certainly covers the roles, responsibilities, and the committee, how it works, roles and responsibilities. It indicates also some of what have proved to be over years sort of soft areas, particularly between the Board of Selectmen as the executive board of the town and in quote independent boards and committees. And I think that's been a hobgoblin of confusion. And I thought the MMA's handbook was pretty clear about that. So I think it tried to address our roles and responsibilities, give people an idea what we do, give people an idea of how the work we do and the work the town is asked to do has been shifting, and how we are being pressed more and more to do cross-committee work and more to have expertise that's simply not that available. So it was a way of engaging, it was a way of informing, and it's a way of trying to get what I think collectively we think are issues that we as a board have to do. So that's where we are. Mike, do you know when that the information will get back to us?
So we scheduled a separate meeting for next Wednesday for the board, so that we'll have the documents both from the communications consultant and town council in time for that meeting. So if not tomorrow, I would expect them very early Monday.
Okay. I'm happy to report that the Legal Service Budget Guideline Working Group, we discussed level service at Wednesday night, last night's meeting of the Warrant Committee. And what we did was we looked at historical data for expenses. We looked at historical data for revenue. We looked at historical data for the mill rate on taxes. We looked at special ed. We looked at breaking out the budget between schools and non-school activity. And I think, and this was the whole committee, so it was like 9 people. So for some people, I think it was the first time they saw all that information that Peter Smith has been keeping for a very long time. And the information that Peter has is in wonderful form. And I'm hoping that because part of their outreach efforts, it was to review their material leading up to town meeting. And I hope that they can take some of that work that's been sitting there sort of in the background and use it to sort of spark a little interest among our residents. So I thought it was a pretty successful meeting. Cam did a nice job. And we're just going to continue to drill down a little bit and see if there's, it literally looked very stable on all of those events. And the growth rate sort of was similar across both revenues and expenses. The thing that went up was the tax rate. And I want to make sure that there are no rocks in the road. I don't know the levy limit. I don't know how much room we have. And I need to understand not just Bob. The Warrant Committee needs to go back and understand a fair number of these issues as well, because we have a couple of new members that we need to educate. So I was very pleased with that. I think Cam was pleased with that.
So just as a reminder, part of our financial policies that we put in place last year or the year before was to ensure that we weren't maximizing the levy, the tax levy. And we haven't maximized, because prior to that, we were maximizing the tax levy, which was contributing to the growth in free cash.
Yeah,
So
there was a
instead,
fair
we would
amount.
not maximize the tax levy. Just allow me to finish.
Sure.
And also, when we did projections for capital and figuring out how much we needed or should be putting in the capital
Stabilization fund.
stabilization fund, we actually modeled making sure that debt that was absorbed as part of that stabilization fund or to fund the capital was done within the levy without maximizing.
Yeah, Robin, what you need to understand is that there are people on that committee who have no idea about our cash reserve policy.
Yeah.
So we need to step back and really re-educate.
Oh, don't get angry at me. I'm just pointing out that this was
I
something
am
that we've
not
done.
angry. I am not angry.
Well, I'm just
You remember how
stating.
much you remember how many people left the Warren Committee last year?
Well,
You
Cam
remember
was on that committee with me.
You remember the kerfuffle as we went through the end of the year. Well, we have 2 or 3 new members, and they were talking about cash reserve policy. They haven't read it. I don't know if they have access to, they should have access to it. So we're back at, so a lot of this stuff is square one, building, re-educating. And it gets pretty complex.
Well, part of my comments were educational.
Yeah, but there's work that needs to be done among the members of the Warrant Committee, and we may have to explain the cash reserve policy.
I believe you asked the question that you weren't sure whether or not we were maximizing the tax levy. So my
I did not.
I
did not.
to that.
I don't. I did not.
No, Bob, it's not an argument. It's just comments.
Right.
So
So
why don't we
the
move on
tax
to the
levy is not
next
something I
item?
worry. In fact, the tax. I mean, I'm just looking at the component pieces. Right, where we have wiggle room, where we don't have. We've been very conservative. The numbers, if you look at the numbers overall, are very stable. Like I said, the only thing that I saw that was sort of blipped was the mill rate on taxes. And I don't know the tax levy side of the case. Like Warren Committee doesn't know necessarily the cash reserve policy. So, I'm assuming and that on the tax on that particular side, as market values go up, we get more wiggle room because we're limited to 2.5%, right?
Right.
And so as long as we keep an eye on that, then there's no issue. But I'm not sure everybody understands the municipal accounting implications. You do.
We established everything we're discussing in 2017.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah. That we began the process in 2017.
We began the process, yes.
Yeah. We added to it the principles and the procedures in 2018, but the levy limit and maintaining the gap or maintaining the consistency inside the levy limit was 2017.
So yes, so
this has been
6 years ago. We have all new members.
Well, yeah.
So I gave you the onboarding. The onboarding update was we asked Robin to put together a draft process for onboarding, which he has done. Then we had the meeting with our 4 new hires, where we suggested that they act as sort of our experimental project team going through the process, and we're able to sort of tell us what worked well, tell us what didn't work well, and bond as a team, because we have a small number of people, and we need to be able to promote communication across silos in the town. So one of the suggestions, and I mentioned it, was occasionally, I don't know if it'll be once a month or every 6 weeks, getting the group together to sort of review progress. We talked about the role of mentors and what worked well and what didn't work well. Everybody, we have a fairly extensive timeline that we received this morning, similar to what you saw with the warrant sponsorship thing, so that people understand this is not like a 2-hour process, that it takes time to bring somebody on board properly and make sure that all of the various and sundry angles fit. So there'll be more to that, but it was it was a good start. People were very open. People were very honest. People were very excited, and looking forward to being able to work with that group to make onboarding part of what we do well.
2 quick comments.
Yep.
You have to differentiate which Robin you're referring to, because people out there are not going to know which Robin.
Well, I'm going to ask Robin Torino to change her name to Robin with a Y, so it's not confusing.
Ask her if you can use her middle name. That'd be very, very Hollywood.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll send her an email.
And then also triple the number of hours. Whatever you put in the roles and responsibilities, have Michael triple the hours.
I thought that those hours were ridiculously short.
Yeah, well, at least triple them.
The other thing that we started to talk about, I see Kim is there. So fiscal year 25 goals and priorities review. This is we talked about sticking in a 20-minute discussion as we go through the warrant, as Cam and company go through the warrant article process, to make sure that as we're assessing spending requests in the budget overall, that we think about what it is we're going to be doing in July of 2024, to make sure that if it's an important critical initiative, that we have funding in the budget for it, because right now we're a little bit misaligned. And so when we talked last night, I mentioned that in the first half of the second quarter of 2020, between July and September, there's going to be a lot of work and resources required to open the Dover Community Center. And so that needs to be something that is considered as we move forward with that. The second thing that's going to happen at least in Bob's view, the second thing that's going to happen in that same period of time is we're going to have to reboot up our technology staff, since we have none, and get back and start to meet the demand for, in the case of residents, for digital services rather than paper-based services. And there's a slew of infrastructure, data infrastructure that we just don't have, that's going to need to be developed if we're going to move into a digitized world. So when we're looking at the budget for FY25, we should be looking hard at that first 6 months, because there's bound to be requests for increasing staff, and they're going to be tied to either one of those two things. That was just sort of sharing, and then I think then once you get there, then the second half should be a little bit clearer, but who the heck knows? The important, last night I said to the folks at Warrant, I know that Mike is trying to put together a straw man on what we think we need from a position point of view, to run an effective and efficient, not bare bones, an effective and efficient administrative organization, with a little extra capacity, so that day when somebody walks out the door, we're not just there holding their jacket for them. So that should help as we move forward into the next phase. I think we're looking at having preliminary numbers by the 17th of November for Warrant, Mike.
So budgets are due to us next week. They'll be available to Warrant. I'll be doing my first presentation to this board on the 30th, and then the following week on the 6th, I believe, to the Warrant.
Is that Cam? Does that fit what you believe? You're good?
Yeah, that's about right. Michael and I sort of coordinated on this before. I know you wanted to have a discussion about those schedules again with me, Mike, but we never really touched base. So I don't have they changed at all since our discussions?
No, I think that was the original plan, and I think we will be able to stick to that.
Yeah.
We'll talk offline just in terms of how it's best to get the budget to you. Access to the Vader system or paper, but we'll go over that.
Yeah, I mean, we now have a warrant committee shared drive, and I'm quite happy to give you access to drop stuff in there. So that would probably be the easiest way for us to do it, because then everybody on the committee can see that stuff there.
Perfect.
So Cam, last night, was it Janet who raised the issue about seeing a sort of a bigger picture?
Yeah, it was Janet McCormick. Mm-hmm.
And so, Mike, when you present, when we put together the preliminaries, is that the full budget with estimates? So could we get, so is that first budget we drop down whether it's the end of November or that should give Warren Committee sort of an overview of what full number, what we think it's going to be for fiscal year 25?
Yes.
Did that not happen last year?
Well, the issue I think is more that as we go through and talk with various departments, we often make suggestions about changes that they might make, and then those numbers change, and so it varies a little bit until we get to the end of the process, basically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that actually sounds pretty good, actually. Again, I just had a whole lot of stuff that came down. There were, relative back to the Dover Community Center, when we did the due diligence work back in August through December of that year, there were several items that were moved around from included in construction to all alternative bids, and then there were some that were identified as potential for philanthropic gifting. So I don't know if and the number's around $500,000 with a list of what you would be buying. So the question I had, I don't know if it's our question because we own the building now. I mean, is it something that we should be doing, looking to ask people for philanthropic contributions to support things like groundskeeping and that would augment what's been done under the construction budget? Or does that happen sort of like the Friends of the COA? Does that happen outside?
So the Friends of the COA cannot accept any donations for any activities that are other than those that directly are for the COA.
Okay.
So we were talking about, I have certain community members had approached me about setting up a Friends of the
Community center?
The community center, and that is in process. There were questions about who could serve on that, and we did talk to legal counsel, and no employees of the town, which would include members of the Board of Selectmen, are eligible to serve on that board or that charitable organization. So there is an individual in town who is setting it up, and is trying to get board members. And then, the ideas are to, if people want to make donations for specific things, that's a vehicle to which they can make donations. The Friends of the Dover Community Center can also do proactive fundraising when the building's closed for different.
So that's you said that's in the works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think
when I
there is make sure we reach out to the community and not just the interest groups or the stakeholders.
We need to get the charitable organ at the 501(c) needs to get set up before they can reach out. But that was their plan. They wanted to make sure they had a vehicle that could accept donations prior to letting the community know that this was available.
Terrific, thank you. Is that going to be outside the board?
Yeah,
The
we
organization outside the
cannot
board?
have anything to
Anybody, right, okay. Any questions, comments about upcoming agendas? Or the additional meeting dates that seem to slide around a lot? Hearing none? Mike, you're up.
Okay. So as the board knows, obviously I'm involved in a lot of the updates that you just gave, but I'll try to hit some of the other ones. As John mentioned, we will have a Hale executive session in just a few minutes, but that's been taking up quite a bit of time. But just, for the community's benefit, we do continue to move forward on that. As mentioned when we talked about Chris, I just wanted to publicly pause and thank Ruth Townsend for her work on the newsletter. That will be transitioning to Chris. Ruth just has done an excellent job and just so critical to get that off the ground. It's been very well received. And, it's hard for her to let it go, but it was the right time for her. And I think Chris will do a great job. And as I said, he's already met with her once and will be meeting with her again in the upcoming weeks to facilitate that transition.
And Ruth's comment, just side note, she said as much as she wanted to give it up, she wasn't going to give it up until she felt like she had the right person to give it up to. So that's right. A compliment, Chris.
Absolutely.
I honestly don't know. That had to be one heck of a lot of work.
Yeah.
And thanked her profusely for that, because that was really stepping into the breach. And it's not an easy thing to do, because you're just going across so many, contacts with different people. So I said to Chris this morning, he certainly has big shoes to fill, and it is a big challenge.
Absolutely.
Then he hit me with his shoe.
It's a very good start.
That's right. Again, I mentioned this in Chris's introduction, but probably our number one, I think, priority was the website and the redesign. And Chris and I met with our current provider, Civic Plus. Yep. And so we'll continue to work through that process with them. Look at other options as well. But that's moving forward. As the board knows, but for the benefit of the public, the last couple of weeks has seen, you've probably unfortunately been impacted by traffic and details around the townhouse, but we've been running municipal fiber. So that's a cybersecurity and network stability upgrade. It's all paid for from a grant from the state. So that is almost finished. And then the second part of that project will be funded through a state earmark, thanks to our state legislators, to upgrade some of the internal components to allow that network to go live. So that's in process now. As Bob mentioned, the community center work, we've been working through some change orders in terms of the director's office. As you know, the asbestos change order will be coming to you at a future meeting. And we've scheduled that meeting for next week on the 15th, not only for the roles and responsibilities, but to have kind of a broader conversation about the management structure of that community center and what the board's vision is for that. And we'll invite our partners, Parks and Rec, COA, the building committee, certainly welcome to attend that meeting as well. And as we talked about, the operating capital budget process has kicked off. So I won't rehash that, but budgets are due next week. And I'm excited, it's my first budget process here in Dover. So I'm really excited to present that to the board and then to the warrant committee to work through that process. And then last but not least, is the board's aware, but for the benefit of the public, we were the part of a nationwide opioid settlement. That was a national settlement with opioid manufacturers and distributors. And Dover's receiving over $150,000 as part of that settlement. And we'll be putting together kind of a staff internal working group, working with the schools to try to figure out the best way to use those funds for the prevention of opioid abuse. So I think it's a very difficult situation for many people. So I think it's great there is some funding to try to help address that situation. So I'll continue to provide the board updates on that as we actually move forward with concrete steps on how to use that funding.
Questions? John, Robin?
None. Well done, Mike.
Robin, you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Consent agenda. Item C1. Vote noon closing on Thanksgiving Eve, November 22nd, and closing on Friday, November 24th. Approve special one-day liquor licenses for October 27th and December 2nd, 2023.
Seconded.
All in favor, I, Bob Springett.
Aye, John Jeffries.
Hi, Robin Hunter.
Okay, so I suppose I need a motion to adjourn.
No, we have,
need
Or do I
motion
just
to
go
roll.
into the
We need a roll call. So you just
I got to read the motion, right?
you got to read the motion. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. We read the motion to adjourn into executive session.
Okay, so here we go. Board members, let me just get a little bit more. Board members will enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with Hale Education regarding a conservation restriction. I move that the board enter into executive session, not to return to open session, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property related to the Hale Education conservation restriction. Further, as chair, I declare that an open meeting discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town. So we have to do this by roll call. So John?
Aye, John Jeffries.
Robin?
concur.
I, Bob Springett. We're ready to rock.